Aviation. It's one of the largest growing markets in the world, with an annual revenue of $746 billion in 2016. This fact is fantastic for economic growth. However, a short-haul flight will roughly produce 1 ton of CO2. Last year, there were 38.2 million passenger flights scheduled. Of course, many of them were not short-haul, and so the actual amount of CO2 produced was much higher. This CO2 production has a massive detrimental effect on the environment. CO2 is the leading cause of climate change. Knowing this, how can science help us slow down climate change by decreasing the amount of CO2 produced by aircraft? The global community have been asking the exact same question, so scientists around the world have been working together to develop more eco-friendly and efficient aircraft in aviation. There are 3 main types of renewable energy that are being incorporated into planes. The first of which is hydrogen fuel cell technology. This is similar to traditional fuel, however, its emissions are water rather than CO2, making it a very good substitute for fossil fuels. How does it work? Hydrogen atoms enter the fuel cell at the anode. Here, a chemical reaction strips them of their electrons. This ionizes the hydrogen atoms, creating a positive electrical charge. Oxygen then enters the fuel cells at the cathode. This then picks up the electrons and then travels through the electrode to the anode, where it combines with hydrogen ions to make water. The water then drains out as a waste product. At the moment, there are 2 main projects for hydrogen-powered planes, the first of which is Phantom I. The Phantom I is Boeing's take on the hydrogen aircraft. The Phantom I is a liquid hydrogen-fueled, high-altitude and long-endurance unmanned aircraft. It is primarily designed to gather intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and communications missions. The prototype aircraft is capable of maintaining its altitude for up to 4 days while carrying a 2-kilo payload. However, the full-size completed Phantom I variant is designed to stay aloft for up to 10 days and carry a payload of 411 kilos. The second project is the HY4. The HY4 is a 4-seater hydrogen-fueled aircraft. Its hydrogen cells continuously power the aircraft's electric motor during flight, and a 21 kWh lithium polymer battery pack helps out during takeoff and the initial climb. The HY4 is believed to be capable of a maximum range of 1,500 km, though this will depend on speed, altitude, load and weather conditions. Its 80 kW electric motor is said to make a maximum speed of around 200 km an hour, and has a cruising speed of 145 km an hour. The second type of energy being experimented with is hybrid technology. Now, hybrid technology has been around for a few years. Hybrid engines are vehicles that combine 2 or more sources of power that can directly or indirectly provide propulsion power. In most cases, this involves a battery combined with a petrol engine. The battery provides additional power so that less CO2 emitting fuels are consumed. It has been used in cars like the Toyota Prius to increase range and decrease emissions. It has also been placed in cars more recently like the McLaren P1, where the focus has been on using the technology to improve its speed. The same type of technology is being tested in planes. NASA and Airbus have teamed up to make cleaner aviation by designing purely electric or hybrid aircraft. The Sceptre and the E-Fan projects both use a hybrid engine to power the plane using electricity. The E-Fan is a much smaller concept and uses more traditional jet engines to propel itself. Its most recent achievement was when the prototype plane flew across the channel under battery power in July of 2015, and was only slightly slower than a regular jet plane of 35 minutes. Project Sceptre is backed and supported by NASA. The key difference between this and the E-Fan is that Sceptre uses NASA's Distributed Electric Propulsion Testbed. This new propulsion system is only a concept at the moment, but does have a lot of potential. It is part of the next generation of X-Planes. X-Planes is NASA's experimental aircraft division. NASA's Distributed Electric Propulsion Testbed has multiple electrically powered propellers evenly distributed on the wing. Because of this design, it is much more efficient and increases lift by up to 5 times at low speeds and optimizes cruising speeds. Sceptre is the first step in NASA's plan for electrically propelled commercial aircraft. The goal with Sceptre is to create an aircraft that can fit 9 passengers using a 500 kilowatt power system. This will generate nearly 700 horsepower. If all goes well, it should be ready by 2019. The plane will weigh 1,360 kilos and is scheduled to have its first test flights in the beginning of 2018. The final type of technology used is solar energy. While solar energy is not new, it has been improved in the last few years. Solar energy works by using solar cells. A thin semiconductor is specially treated to form an electric field, with a positive field on one side and a negative field on the other. When light strikes the solar cells, electrons are knocked loose from the atom in the semiconductor material. If electrical conductors are attached to the positive and the negative sides, an electrical circuit is formed. The electrons are then captured in the form of electricity, which can then power things like aircraft. One major example of this is the Solar Impulse project. Solar Impulse is a Swiss long-range experimental solar-powered aircraft project, and is also the name of the project's 2 operational aircraft. The aircraft are single-seated monoplanes, powered by extremely efficient solar cells. They are capable of taking off under their own power. The first prototype, the Solar Impulse 1, was designed to remain airborne for up to 36 hours. It had its first test flights in December 2009, and in July 2010, it flew an entire diurnal solar cycle amounting to a 26-hour flight. The second prototype, the Solar Impulse 2, completed a far more remarkable achievement of flying around the world in a multi-stage journey that started from Abu Dhabi in the UAE in March of 2015. During the journey on its longest leg from Japan to Hawaii, the aircraft's batteries sustained thermal damage that took months to repair. However, after they were repaired, the plane completed circumventing the globe and became the first solar-powered plane to do so. The Solar Impulse 2 carries more solar cells and more powerful motors, which allowed it to fly for longer than the Solar Impulse 1. These are just 5 examples of many projects that are incorporating CO2 reducing technologies to improve the CO2 emissions of aviation and to help stop climate change. The problems. Firstly, all these projects require a lot of money, and for the most part they are being funded by governments or private investors. Development is very slow considering how much they cost and how urgent the need is. The second big issue is the weight of them. All the planes at the moment are very small and are not going to replace big airliners anytime soon. The technology most likely to catch on first is the hybrid technology, as it did with the car industry. Even though hybrid is not the perfect solution, it would be a great leap forward in reducing CO2 emissions produced by aviation. The environmental impact of climate change is huge, and if it's not solved in time, the world we live in today will collapse. Climate change means the polar ice caps will melt. The result of this is rising water levels, and flat, low-level countries like Bangladesh and other islands like the Maldives will be completely submerged underwater. This implication means there will be hundreds of millions of climate refugees looking to find a new home. Wars over land would possibly break out, and other issues like health problems and more erratic and extreme weather conditions all add to the worrying effects of climate change. So even though the technology is expensive, we must find a way to harness it.